Howdy, everybody. Chest College Humanities 4. Here we are, the ending, another week of April, and that is it. And then we're off to May. Then that's it, folks. So another essay or two, and then a final paper and your journal. And that is about it. Um, People are piping in for some reason or the other that they're late on assignments. I cut you a lot of slack. I give you a lot of time to do the assignments, a week to watch the film, write the paper. I understand life gets in the way. It's okay to be late. You'll lose points, of course. That goes without saying, because someone who gets their paper in on time should get full points, and it's only fair to everybody else. So here's the thing: get your papers in. If you have to, if it's closed, because I close the assignments after a week, then you have to email them to me at my email. That's fine. rexhaas@yahoo.com. Um, that goes with everything. Uh, all the assignments. If you're late, get them in. If it's too late, a week late, that's probably too much. Just forget about it. You'll get a zero. But I understand things come up, cars break down, computers go crazy on us. Family members want to bother us to death. Dogs and cats are very needy. I get it. Life gets in the way. But be that as it may, I hope you guys all saw my notes today, or at least please read them. I mean, it's too late for the quiz, but it's on this area and canvas called. It's on the left over there. Just punch on pages, and I think I go through the quiz thing pretty good again because the quizzes were kind of a bust. But you can make up for it because I'm going to sign an extra paper this week. Um, if you choose, it's up to you if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. You don't lose points by doing it, that's for sure, but you will gain up to 10 points by doing it. So it's a volunteer move only. But it's just more essays, which I'm sure you're getting tired of by now. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, today we're going to be read the last chapter of the book. In the textbook, it covers everything from what we're going through right now. And if you have the latest edition, it goes even further into the digital world that the other one doesn't. It's okay if you don't have that edition. I'm not testing you on it, but it's handy stuff to know, and it's handy stuff to kind of wrap the class up. And I will be assigning the last episode of the story film, the Mark Cousins film, to watch. Watch it right now if you have access to it. It's on. You can buy it on YouTube, or you can get it, I believe, supposedly on Canopy if you have your library card. If you do or not. Sorry you're so upset, sweetie. Want to go out? Did you want to go out? No? This one cause trouble. Okay. That I can't help you with. Okay, here we go. So that's where we stand. Almost got all the papers graded. Oh, I'm proud of myself. I do have two more essays, the French New Wave, and what was the last one? Art directors, tour directors of the '80s. I'm getting there, folks. So here we are. Today, I want to talk about women directors. If you probably noticed, there's not a lot of women in this is film directors, folks. Yes, women are actors, they're writers, but mostly it's directing has been a man's world. But that is all changing. For example, Jane Campion from New Zealand just won the best Oscar for best movie, Power of the Dog, and she's a woman, and she's made some brilliant films. I'm not a big fan of that film. It's okay. It's all right. I don't have to be a fan of all the films, but she's done some films. I like her short films a lot before she got famous, and then she really got on the map with a movie called The Piano in the '90s. Um, so she's a strong female director in a very male-dominated world. But I want to kind of go back to the beginning of film. And yes, folks, there were women directing films in the silent era. They're lost in the history of the mess of history, and most of their films aren't around anymore because in the old days they didn't save the films. They would store them for a while, and when they needed um, room for more films, they would destroy the films. Yes, that's how they made room for more movies to put in the storage, the big rolls of film. So a lot of the films from that era are not around. You can see some of the stuff if you have the station, which I have, called Criterion. It's for serious cinephiles. That's not to be confused with the other file. You don't want that file. Cinephile essentially is somebody who's uh, obsessed with movies, cinema, and I would say that definitely describes some of us. To where but we've based our actual life on it. Movies have been everything to me since my mother started taking me to movies when I was 5 years old. And has it slackened off? Not the dream, it hasn't. My movie going has slackened off because of the COVID. I stream all the time, never stop streaming, never stop looking for the next new movie that I could sit through. And it usually has to be a little more deeper than Spider Man. No offense to you, Spider Man fans. I just need something more than good against evil and a guy running around in a leotard or a onesie. Why do they dress like that? Anyway, I can't think of her name now. She's my favorite superhero. She had a TV series. I'm going to forget the name of what her hero was. And, but she walks around in, like me, in regular clothes, leather coat, looking great. She's part of the X-Men thing, I believe. She was she was on a series. Um, they took it off, but she was just an angry, depressed person who happened to be. She could punch you through a wall, and she could jump over buildings, which comes in handy sometimes. Anywho, so I'm not against all superheroes. I'm against. Let's go outside, you guys. Come on, sweethearts. There you go. Oh yeah, out you go. Go on, Opal. Go on, sweetheart. You want out? Yeah. Go on. Oh, where was I? I was interrupted by my spoiled cats. They want in, they want out, they want out again. So I kicked them both out because they were bothering me. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so go back to the silent era, and there was I can only talk about one director. I mean, there were several, but this woman here, Louise uh, Lois Weber, uh, was directing shorts and feature films in Hollywood, mostly all during the silent era. And at one time, she was the highest paid director, believe it or not. Prolific. She made over 135 films, shorts. In those days, they used to make, before feature films came, remember I told you about that film earlier on? D.W. Griffith's uh, film came out. That was one of the first feature films. When I say feature, that means full length films. Before that, uh, they were all one reeler or two reelers. That's what they called them. A reel of film was 10 minutes, maybe 11, 12 minutes if they changed, messed around with the speed of the film. And so that's what audiences were used to seeing. And then as filmmakers got more ambitious and more skilled, they started making longer films and audiences could sit through them. Not like now with our short extension, our short attention spans. Um, and so Lois actually made the very first feature length film by a woman director, um, 1914. And she did a Shakespeare play, Merchant of Venice. Um, if you have this series called, it's a platform series. It's called Criterion. It's for serious film people. All these films are on there, and all most of the foreign films I talk about are on there. Art films are on there. It's not for the blockbuster people. It's not for those people who want that quick fix of your X-Men, your Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, all that. That's not on there. Thank you. Um, but these films are. It's well worth it if you love film like I do. Lots of them in black and white. You'd have to get used to that. But and so here was a woman doing women's stories. Usually her themes had a female slant. And this is a world where women didn't have the right to vote yet. That came in a few years later. So remember, I'm always asking you guys to look at the historical, cultural context which these films are being made. That was what the test was about. If you looked at that test, trying to figure out what inspired those new auteur directors, what was the culture they're living in? Well, Vietnam War, civil rights, assassinations of political people. It was trying times, and they were making. That's what influenced them. Yes, other filmmakers, French New Wave. That's cool. You could use that answer. But I was looking for the cultural influences, the world they're living in. What is the world we're living in now? If you look at pages, what's going on right now? Right now, politics, whether you're like the president or the ex president, it's ongoing every day. The divide in Congress, that's important. That's inspiring new stories. Ukrainian war, we're living through a war. Yes, it's quite a ways from us. But have you been in a world war before? Yes, we've been in the Middle East. This is different. This is war on a level like World War II. Um, Army tanks. You didn't see that in the Middle East. Um, the Taliban didn't have jets. So, the culture we're living in, the pop culture, your TikTok culture that you're all obsessed with, um, YouTube culture, um, the gun culture, and America's obsessions with firearms. That's the all the shooting deaths from school deaths to drive-bys. Uh, they're almost weekly. The homeless. Why are so many homeless? Well, there's a reason for that. You got to look at why all the time, and it's inspiring filmmakers, not just trendy stuff. I was trying to get that in the quiz. Please don't use sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Everybody did. Um, very few of those films I don't know if you saw any of those films and that movie. If you saw the movie Easy Rider, Raging Bulls, and I know a lot of you didn't because I could tell by your responses, um, there wasn't a lot of sex going on in The Godfather or Five Easy Pieces or so many of the films that were legendary. Um, wasn't a lot of drug taking. You never saw it really. Yes, Easy Rider, they smoked a joint, but everybody wasn't doing drugs in all these movies. You never saw it. It wasn't happening. Uh, Look at a movie like Taxi Driver. Yes, he's drinking booze with with a cereal. That's different. Um, and actually, there's very little actual sex in it too. Things are a lot looser now. Look at HBO; it's gone crazy with graphic sex. Anyway, my point is what's going on in the culture now. That's what I'm trying to point out to you all. That's important in the lives of these filmmakers we're talking about. And so when Lois Weber was making films, World War I was happening. That's a huge event, folks. Remember they called it the war to end all wars, the Great War? They didn't do any of those. There was far greater wars later on down, but it was the first modernized mechanized war and slaughter of the highest order. Now that's happening in Europe, yes, but America gets in the war and loses a lot of guys, helps win the war actually, but France and Germany and England lost a lot of lives. Thank you very much, Germany. Once again, troublemakers in Europe. But they're going to get revenge when Hitler comes along. Okay. Okay. So that's the culture she's living in. She can't even vote. She might follow politics and she wants to change things. She can't. I mean, unless you don't believe in voting, that's okay. But it is a handy thing. Um, it's part of who we are as a democracy. And she couldn't even vote. I mean, just you guys know you're not aware of it. You're too young, and I get that. But until about 1972, women in this country weren't allowed to have a charge card unless it was in their husband's name. That was just in when I was in college, folks. That I know you think it's all a long time ago. Not that long ago, women in this country could not have a charge card, credit card. Women's movements changed all that, and that's what was part of the culture of that Easy Rider Raging Bulls I wanted you to watch. That was going on in the culture. Women's roles were getting more intricate to the roles, to the movies rather, and more important and more important. And so here we have Weber making films in the silent era, man, and with men crews and female stories, usually about love and loss and pregnancy and heartache through the eyes of a woman, the female gaze, as they call it. You know what the male gaze is, you don't you? How we fetishize beautiful women. The camera loves to linger on them. That's called the male gaze. And most people can't live up to it. And the males can't live up to it because their their fantasy gaze is never what it appears to be. Uh, because there's always a human being there, not just a lump of flesh with eyes. So, anyway, getting off topic. So later on, there no females were really directing in the 30s or 40s. An actress by name of Ida Lupino, very well-known actress who did many film noir movies. Um, a great one called High Sierra with Humphrey Bogart. She was usually the girl from the wrong side of tracks. and she was wanting more than just to be a little sexy, cute thing for the male gaze. She wanted to be behind the camera. Well, that wasn't going to happen, but she tried. But finally, she got an opportunity to do some shooting on a film. The director got sick. This would be in the late 1940s. And she worked well with the film crew. People were impressed with what she did. And guess what, folks? She got to direct movies now. And she formed a production company. Um, and her and her partner produced some really quality B movies. These were low budget movies with not the A actors because she couldn't pay them. And look at her movie called Hitchhiker. Uh, there's only three people in it. The two guys going fishing, and they're out in the middle of the desert. I don't know where they're going. I think they filmed it down in the Mojave. Pretty sure they did. They're going to go fishing somewhere in the Mojave. I don't know. They must know a river nobody else knows about. Anyway, then they do the worst thing they could possibly do. They pick up a hitchhiker. Who? Guess what, folks? Everybody's nightmare about hitchhiking. Yes, they pick up a mad killer. And the rest of the movie is this guy holds a gun on them, and it's just a matter of time when he murders them and how they get out of it. Then she directed a film later on called The Bigamist, and about a guy married to two different women. Now, she didn't make a judgment call whether it was bad or good. She showed you both sides. The guy was a decent guy. He was trying to do the decent thing by both women, but he kind of messed up and married two women and had two different lives. He gets caught in the end. They find him. And in those days, you could go to prison for bigamy. Now, I don't think anything happens to you. They make you get a divorce. Some hardcore uh, Mormon followers of Latter day Saints believe in many wives. Good for the guy, right? Not so good for the women. I don't believe. But they rarely go to prison. They just force them to divorce. Anyway, so Ida Lupino was making some cutting edge, kind of feminist films for her time. And she mostly was working with rough and ready male crews who respected her. And so she got the respect of the industry. Now, later on, when she could no longer kind of raise money for these films, because they weren't big blockbusters, they played in second run theaters and they opened for other movies. The second feature. Um, so it was a hard go. So she started directing for television, and she did very well in the '60s. She directed Wagon Train, Bonanza, Gilligan's Island. Yes, even Gilligan's Island. And then you can make your living off doing those series in those days. Nowadays you can too. If you're lucky enough to direct television, you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars an episode if you're lucky. And so Ida Lupino was a real groundbreaker female director and gave other females a role model to look at. There's somebody they could relate to. Someone's doing what they want to do, but it didn't really happen much in the '60s, in the '70s. Really, no. There were some foreign female directors like Lena Wertmüller, who just died this year at 90. I think she was possibly 92. She was art director from, when I say art house director, from Italy. Seven Beauties, Swept Away. Her movies were hugely popular when I was in film school. Um, so foreign countries seem to open their be more amenable to female directors. Hollywood was a man's world, and the doors were closed. So, but the doors are opening. A woman who won the Academy Award, the first woman to ever win an Academy Award for Best Direction, Catherine Bigelow. Maybe seen her movies Zero Dark 30, The Hurt Locker. She directs. This is a horrible thing to say, but she directs like a man. There's not much feminine touch in those movies. It's not a bunch of sensitive women sitting around talking about how bad their marriages are. No, it's about rough and ready men in combat usually. Although in Zero Dog 30, the heroine is a woman. That's about the killing of Osama bin Laden. Uh, so she won the Academy Award for Best Director, and that was rare because her movies make money. They're very packed with action. Her earliest film that I remember, which I love, it's called Near Dark. Came out about 1988, somewhere about that. Maybe I'll put a preview for you guys to look at. It's about vampires. One of the best vampire movies ever made. And I don't mean the romantic vampires. There's nothing romantic about these idiots. They're stone blooded killers and they love it. And they don't just come out at night and then have funny teeth on. They're like a biker gang travel town to town. She breaks all the rules in this vampire movie. But for some reason, it's got a beauty to it and it's got a romanticism to it. Doesn't everybody want to live forever? Problem with vampires is you got to kill every day to live. That's a little bit of bit of a problem, and you have to find a way to make a living. So, Catherine Bigelow at the time was married to um, Cameron, who directed the Titanic and Avatar, and she used his film crew. So she was in on her husband's coattails. Yes, she was. She needed that because a lot of the actors that worked with him on Aliens, second part, Aliens, and Terminator 2, which he directed, Terminator 1 and 2, um, worked on her film because of him. But she later divorced him. She's on her own and she's done some incredible film work. I still think her best movie is Near Dark because it was such a surprise. Um, Zero Dark 30, well directed, but you know how it ends. Osama bin Laden is killed. Um, anyway, she's still out there. She's my age, folks. Looks better than me, though. Um, Still directing movies and still keeping her dream alive. Powerful, powerful woman in Hollywood, which is rare. Um, Somebody who's not as powerful, but who has a very interesting point of view in her film. Sophia Coppola, who's yes, she's Francis Ford Coppola's daughter. He's the guy who directed The Godfathers, Apocalypse Now, some of our greatest films of that era that I actually read that documentary about on the 70s. He's still out there. And she was an actress in Godfather Part 3. Unfortunately, she's not very good in that. Um, yeah, she had daddy's help on all this stuff, but she's directed some very sensitive movies. The Virgin Suicides, maybe you've seen it. Um, my favorite film of hers is called Lost in Translation uh, with Bill Murray. He's a over the hill actor doing a commercial for a lot of money in Japan. He's burnt out. He's depressed. He's not happy, and he meets a young wife of a guy who's not paying attention to his wife, played by hmm, her best role ever. I can't think of her name. She's a sex symbol, and she's in all the superhero Iron Man movies. Why can't I think of her name? Just married Colin Jost, the guy of Saturday Night Live. Scarlett Johansson. It's her best thing she ever did. Before she got all about her sex and all about her looks, she was very human in this thing. And they meet because they're staying at the same hotel. They have sort of. a love affair without any sex, folks, because he's supposed to be 60 and she's supposed to be 28 or something. Not going to happen, folks. That's Hollywood, not real life. Um, but they form a deep bonding friendship, and it's really a wonderful performance on both their parts. And Sophia directed it wonderfully. She went on to do uh, why can't I think half her movies, but she's still out there. She directed a Netflix series with Bill Murray recently. Um, she's turned into a very fine director, but without the clout of her dad and all of that helping her, she wouldn't probably have accomplished these things. Nepotism does help, folks, but some of these women didn't have that, and they did it, sucked it out on their own. Jane Campion, who just won the Best Director, is one of those women who socked it out on her own, and she made short films, which are wonderful. And then her early films got her on the map, foreign films, but she was always in the sidebar of art house female director, meaning no chance for commerciality, no chance for box office bonanza, because she's not directing a Star Wars episode. Have you noticed they don't give women that job usually because they feel women can't do that? What do you think? So that's it, folks. Women in directing. If you're interested in directing, I hope you do. Really, the field is wide open, and now there is opportunity like never before. They're looking for female writer directors. They're looking for that. They're seeking you. It's never happened before. And so the door is opened and it's getting better every day. So look for your next assignments, which will probably be about women directors. I'll post it the next day or so. You'll have a week to do it. Let me make sure I've got everything here. Women, Kathy, Ida, Sophia. That's it, folks. Happy April. We got another week of April, then on to May, then the class. So hope you're getting something out of this class. Hope you're keeping the faith, watching films and enjoying them and looking at them with different critical eyes, especially since you have that tool, that great book I wanted you guys to read. How to write about movies. It's not just about what you like, it's about understanding what you're seeing. And that's important in critical thinking. Okay, until next time, Story of Film continues. Bye. Mm. Yep.